Hi, everyone. I'd like to do a shout out to our sponsor, Baco Diagnostics. Early detection is the single most important factor in improving patient outcomes. The Baco Diagnostics team recognizes how impactful a podiatric physician can be and remains committed to supporting you in your role as the first line of defense in diagnosing conditions of the lower extremity. Thanks to the unwavering support of their clients, Baco Diagnostics has been able to give back to the podiatric community for 16 years by providing podiatric educational resources and advocating for the position. Baco Diagnostics, helping podiatric physicians keep America on its feet. If you have not yet had the opportunity to utilize Baco Diagnostics services, get started today by sending an email to corporaterelations@bacodiagnostics.com. The first 50 podiatry offices who request a starter kit will receive a Dean's Chat mug. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dean's Chat, where we discuss all things podiatric medicine. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I'm the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine and the host for the Dean's Chat podcast. Once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Joanna Richey. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I saw on social media you had quite a weekend in Baltimore with AO North America.
Oh, it was an absolutely fabulous meeting. And, it's actually really exciting. Our guest today was someone that I was introduced via AO, and it's a wonderful opportunity to meet so many incredible people. And the passion for education and excellence is just unmatched.
Oh, that's incredible. Well, I'm super excited about our guest today. I'd like to introduce Dr. Lindsey Hjelm. Dr. Hjelm was previously, she was a guest host on Dean's Chat. So welcome back, this time as a guest, Dr. Hjelm.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I think you all do wonderful work, and it's exciting to hear about the outreach that you have in the podiatric community and beyond.
Oh, we'll talk a lot about that today. If it's all right with you, let's go first names. Lindsey, Joe, and Jeff.
Love it.
Well, Lindsey, thank you so much for taking time today. Again, you were a fabulous co-host, and it's always fun when we have these opportunities. Jeff has a meeting or I'll have a meeting, and sometimes these little moments of inspiration. And of course, it was the day that it was Hutch's interview, and I'm like, I know the perfect person to come on here. And you've been on my list of people to schedule anyway. So I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen today. Just to give you a brief intro, as we do with our guests typically. You did complete your 4-year undergraduate degree with Gustave Adolphus College with a Bachelors of Arts in biology, but also a minor in studio art and religious studies. And I definitely want to come back to that because that was something you and I have had a lot of conversations together, but we have not really talked about art. So maybe if we get to it today, we'll dive into that a little bit more. You then went to Des Moines University to complete your podiatric medical doctorate degree, and then did your 3-year surgical residency program with Franciscan foot and ankle under the direction of Dr. Craig Clifford, which, fun fact, and I know you know this, but for the audience, Dr. Craig Clifford and I were co-residents when he came to San Francisco to work with Dr. Schuberth. He was the resident that I had spent most of the time with when he was in San Francisco. So I know him very well. He was a wonderful, wonderful chief resident to work alongside with as he came as a visitor to our program. But then you also then went on to complete your fellowship program with the Advanced Foot and Ankle Reconstructive Fellowship under Dr. Byron Hutchinson, as we heard previously. But you also got to work with Dr. Mike Dugella with the Centralia Washington Foot and Ankle Fellowship program. So welcome to Dean's Chat.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me. You've outlined so many things kind of in the past, but I'm here to talk about all those things and how maybe they apply for people in the future, or just thoughts or considerations, and everyone's journey looks different.
Yeah, I'd love to start with the liberal arts side of things, since I was also an fine art major prior to switching to the medical world.
Hey.
And I think that there's always a fun perspective for students that just come with a diverse background. So can you talk a little bit about how you got interested in podiatry? And then, what your take on undergrad was like?
Absolutely. So my interest in podiatry started in high school. I had suffered a stress injury to my navicular and unfortunately did not heal through conservative means. It's hard to look back and wonder how I may have treated it differently with the knowledge that I have now. But at that time, I didn't have knowledge and certainly was relying on a number of very well-credentialed individuals. And sadly, it came to a point probably after 6 months that I did have surgery on it. I had an area kind of debrided of some loose bone and then also a screw put across. So I've done very well since then. I had a female surgeon and I was inspired by that to say like, wow, I had multiple opinions, I should also say, by other individuals, and felt like this woman kind of came to my rescue and also helped me cultivate an interest outside of myself to say, I'd love to help other athletes. Foot and ankle care intrigues me. It's complex. Clearly, it can't be that straightforward all the time if I've seen multiple specialists and didn't heal very promptly. But I feel fortunate that that helped me explore the profession and ultimately took me to an undergraduate program where I really had declared a pre-medical interest, but was still keeping every door open to say, hey, I need to get like biochem done. I need to do organic chemistry. Is foot and ankle surgery going to be a reality for me? And I feel fortunate that it was. And I love the undergraduate, my studies there and the liberal arts education. For me, doing studio art and even the religious studies were ways that I could still explore other passions or interests while doing all of my normal, things that I had to do as prerequisites for med school. And I also was a student athlete. So I think I would love to promote the liberal arts education for as many people that have curiosities as I do. And I just really enjoyed taking those 4 years to explore who I was as a person, but also things in life that were going to be a part of me, even if not my full job day to day, like it is now. So I'd be interested to hear, Joe, about your fine arts experience. But for me, I loved working with different mediums, painting, drawing. I think for me, the fine motor and spatial relationships were huge. It challenged me. I learned a lot through doing that.
Yeah. And even the art of observation, like the subtleties that you're asked to notice when you're doing fine art. I want to keep this interview focused on you. So we'll save my end of it if it comes out kind of organically and naturally. But the short version that I would love to just kind of piggyback on is I absolutely agree with you. I think there are so many students out there that have this innate curiosity. And for anyone that might be out there that's listening that doesn't think that med school is for them, med school can be for you. It really is an opportunity. And I love what you just said there, Lindsey, to keep your doors open to explore. How can you expect at 18, 19 years old that you know what you're going to spend the rest of your life doing, right? So I actually changed majors a ton of different times because I would get into something, I would get really into it and love it. And then I'd find something new and be like, ooh, that sounds really interesting. And then you just kind of start exploring who you are and what you want. Jeff, I would love to throw the ball back to you because I know you and I were just having this conversation a little bit earlier, even today. So I'm going to hand the time back to you so that I don't also hog this entire interview, because the last couple of times I've hung out with Lindsey, I could literally just be in a conversation with her the entire time as we taught through the AO weekend. So Tag, you're it.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Lindsey, this is so interesting because there are three things going on at once. For a young college person, you were in sports, you were an athlete, you were looking at the biological sciences, and that's a whole different mindset than fine arts. That's a very mature way of looking at things, because I'll tell you, when I was in college, I didn't look at things that way, and I wish I had. Is that just a product of the liberal arts education, or what? Did you grow up that way? Were you always curious? Because that's a unique background, and I'm
Sure.
like I said, I'm kind of envious of that. That's fabulous.
You've given me a really good thought to ponder. I think part of it was my family went to liberal arts schools. So it could have been part of how I was raised to say, hey, guess what? Like, you like different things, go explore different things. We're going to put you in art camp over the summer. We're going to put you in soccer. And guess what? You need to do some summer classes with reading and math. So maybe naturally my parents implemented those things, but I think there was part of me that was okay taking the journey and seeing the exploration that would happen. I really honor students with a very focused mentality now, where they allow them to take college classes in high school. And maybe they start thinking about careers earlier. I've certainly met some amazing people where I think, if that had been my experience or opportunity, would I have done this liberal arts situation? but I didn't do college in high school. And so I was going to take every opportunity I could to take those college classes and allow them to shape the next step for me.
So I have a question. Did you find the biological sciences or the chemistries, organic chemistries, physics easier, or was that methodical and the fine arts were easier? How'd your brain work and how'd you balance it all?
Yeah. I'm not sure that the sciences were easier for me, Jeff. I think that I knew it was a means to an end, and I had respect for the sciences and my instructors and the complexities, knowing the relationship that would have to the human body and to patients. But I wouldn't go back and say I'd love to remajor in biochem now, or like that I would love to go back and take physics courses, because that probably was not my first love. But I also knew that probably my skill set wasn't going to be making artwork professionally and supporting myself.
It's interesting. So literally, Joe and I, like 2 hours ago, were having this conversation about the applicant pool. And it's no longer a period of time in young people's lives where you can just look at numbers and make an assessment.
Sure.
You can't just look at MCAT scores and science GPA. You have to look at like grit and resiliency, all these kinds of things. And then all of a sudden, the conversation Joe and I had veered off to, well, maybe we should be looking more at student athletes. And my experience is student athletes manage their time well, they're goal-oriented. They experience the highs of winning and the lows of losing with a team sometimes. So your comments on your athletic participation with college and in your career now, even perhaps.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I actually took out one of my former nurses to lunch yesterday. She's in her first few weeks of medical school for an allopathic medicine position. And she did not get in her first year of applying. And this year that she's in it, I mean, it sounds like things are going so smoothly. She's testing excellent. She's confident. She doesn't seem stressed to a level beyond what I would anticipate. And it made us both wonder how she didn't get in her first year, to be honest. But I think, to your point, you can't size up the magnitude of how qualified an individual is on paper, and maybe not even on an interview. Maybe there are more questions that could be asked about how you overcome hardship or failure, and that probably would be pretty standard. But I thought it was interesting speaking with her. I'm just so pleased she's doing well. I knew she would always do well, but it's hard getting through that initial phase of applicants and maybe standing out and being admitted to the school of your choice.
Yeah, and what you said earlier about having your navicular fracture and not going as planned and having to deal with that and how that shaped you. I think that's just an incredible story at a super young age.
It was hard at the time, and I think that had I not had mentors around me to counsel, like kind of my train of thought, to say like, this isn't a time to be a victim. Like, you can feel bad. It's unfortunate. In high school, you're like, yeah, I was 17, 18, like maturity level was at that appropriate level probably. But I mean, I saw my life before me really change because I was on the sidelines, not doing the things I loved. And to have other individuals in my life help me think beyond myself was probably the greatest gift I could have had. Was in its own way a foot tragedy, obviously not life-threatening, but changed my life at the time. And I think makes me better for it now.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it. Joe?
Oh, I would love to piggyback on that, because Lindsey, you just said something there that I think one of the other things Jeff and I was talking about when we think about the future of the career and what a podiatrist looks like and what they do, having empathy for our patients is different than sympathy, right?
Yeah.
Having those experiences and having to be the person to sit on the sidelines and watch these things happen, going through the process of trying things that not working, going through surgical intervention. How did that impact how you now function as a physician? And I would love to, again, just point out, I just thought this was such a beautiful expression of confidence in you. One of our mutual colleagues had mentioned that you were completely changed his perspective on how he even talks and interacts with patients. He was just overwhelmingly impressed by the way that you conducted yourself. This was Dr. Djela. And I remember just being like, that's outstanding. So How did that impact you and the way that you treat your patients?
Oh, well, that's really humbling. I think in probably some ways, like major and continuous setbacks have pulled me forward. And it's hard to tell young people that because you don't want to succeed or be defined by those setbacks, but I think they can be one of the most beautiful things. Um, and so from my perspective, becoming more and more empathic through the years has benefited me. I think there's times that it can be a little bit exhausting because I do feel for people maybe beyond what the average benchmark is. There's no way to probably really measure that, but I do feel for my patients. I think that it allows me to answer questions differently, approach them differently, maybe a little softer. I think most people would say I'm still pretty direct because I want to be factual, but I do try to think of extra things in their lives that I'm really quick to say, hey, do you want a handicap parking pass? Like, let's think about notes that we can provide for your instructors to help you get to and from classes with better ease. I don't think that I'm excessively like acting as a counselor, but I do find patients are quick to tell me their emotions as they're going through the process to say, yeah, I'm feeling down. And I think that's a beautiful place to be, that people feel they can really be themselves with me. And I genuinely try to do the same. I think people know when it's maybe a busy day in my office and can know who I am, to say that I'm trying to help as many people as I can in a day, and I think every day, probably my mindset going into work is I try to ask, like for me, I try to ask God just to give me the heart to care for people in front of me. And sometimes, you know what, life is busy and that can feel like a lot. People do carry a lot. And I'm human.
Absolutely.
We all are, right? But I
Yeah.
think the care and compassion is probably the biggest difference I can make in my healthcare. I think so many other people are equally qualified to do the surgeries and deliver the diagnoses and read the MRI. But if I demonstrate care, and that could be through extra eye contact, maybe setting a hand on a knee, just really taking that extra moment to make someone feel heard, I feel that I get that feedback from patients that they felt like they weren't just a number.
I love this. And I'm curious, with some of your history, where do you think you learned some of those soft skills, or how, in a world where we are now becoming less face-to-face reliant, and there is so much more opportunity to engage online and in short digital text that doesn't have body language, doesn't have 80% of the communication that you actually have with a patient in an office. What do you think is good advice for perhaps either younger students in the audience or prospective students? How do you pick up these kinds of soft skills?
Oh, that's so interesting. I don't know if I know exactly how I may have picked it up, but I think if you're introspective enough with yourself, you interact with people and you know what makes you feel good. And if you look at conversations with others or analyze your friendships or other interactions in general, I would just say sometimes I'm able to put my finger on like, wow, I really felt heard, or somebody pulled something out of me that I couldn't have gotten pulled out by maybe my lifelong, whatever friend. Like, how was it that someone could do that? So I do try to be introspective with my relationships and interactions to be like, why did that feel off? Maybe that's almost the easier way to look at it and be like, you might go to the doctor and be like, oh, dang, I was really just kind of plowed through their schedule and I could see the difference. So maybe some of those things are good. I'm also a huge advocate of reading different books on psychology, self-help, self-wellness. I wouldn't even be able to list off all the impactful titles, but I would just say I went through Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influences recently. I felt like I had heard a lot of principles, but I'd never really sat down and read the book. I would say hands down, that's a great read, because that's really how you interact with people and win them over, not in a way that's anything but genuine, but hey, make sure you really know people's names. The magnitude and power in that alone, amazing. I'm not saying you're going to remember every patient name, but really make an effort to use their name during the visit. The nonverbals are huge. I can absolutely recall talking with people where, they even just furrow their brow. and it's unintentional, but it does make them look like they are not trusting you or second guessing you. So things like that, I'm sure I'm just barely scratching the surface, but one thing I wish I had almost done more, and maybe just to speak to current residents or students that are feeling stuck in the shadowing phase, is like really take a moment to, maybe you're so focused on the science and the medicine and the diagnoses, but what do you like about the person that you're shadowing, to be like, how do they talk with the patients? I was so humbled. I had a resident shadow me and just really outline how conversational our visit was with the patient. And I stopped and thought, I was like, oh yeah, we do that more in my office than just kind of, hi, bye, this is your problem. Here's a walking boot and I'll see you in 4 weeks. We are conversational. I think in central Minnesota, there is a little bit of an expectation, or one that I would even put on myself, to say, like, we are Minnesota nice. Like, I am going to ask about your grandkids again, or, something else. So I would just, to round that out, encourage students to always be learning, reading. And when they observe providers that they really enjoy and maybe don't, what is it that they could have done better?
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
That's
Jeff, your thoughts?
So one of my thoughts is I was watching a TED Talk recently, and they were highlighting the number one quality of not just success, but getting along in the world. And it wasn't grit, and it wasn't perseverance, and it wasn't brain power. It was likability. To your
Wow.
point, Lindsay, it's
Yeah.
if you make eye contact, if you smile, if you're not,
Mhm.
just a conversationalist,
Mhm.
it goes a long way, not only in friendships and things, but in developing trust with your
Sure.
patients. So I think that's
Yeah.
important.
And I think one thing that, maybe is appropriate to bring up now is, this is a really small profession. I mean that with a great positive light, to say that the people you interact with, you continue to see them throughout your career and beyond. You might end up treating their grandmother. You might have their family member referred to you. You're going to see them at conferences. You're going to see them at Continual, like, so many things. And I would say, while likability can sound challenging for a person to take on, and you don't want to be a people pleaser, it is great to show kindness to those around you. And that always will go a really long way. You don't have to see eye to eye on everything, but if you're kind and gracious, like, I think that has continued to mold my career and open doors, and maybe close the right doors, to just say, like, reading kindness is huge.
There's so much we can talk about, because even in our profession, there's lots of different things going on behind the scenes politically and
Mhm.
whatnot. And it's one thing to have an opinion or sit on a Zoom call or a Teams meeting and you're separated. But if you go out to dinner together and you have drinks and you're chatting and you're friends, it's different, because then you attack problems as the problem, not the person, right? So I mean, to your point, in a small profession, it feels like it gets smaller as you get older, not bigger
Yes.
even.
And
So
I would definitely say that. I think that can be the difference from other medical professions, is then I feel like my value in the profession is almost of greater magnitude. And that's not because I carry myself with so much esteem, but just to say, there are so many interconnections. We've already spoken about Joe and I really meeting through AO, that my residency director was with her during residency. We were on this podcast before with my fellowship director that has influenced all of us in certain ways, to then the resident that was at AO that now comes and shadows me and probably will stay connected. I mean, it just goes on and on. And I love that. I think it gives it a little bit of a familial blend. And I think if you continue giving, you ultimately kind of receive that tenfold back in different ways, different blessings, maybe. So I try to live that way.
I like your Minnesota nice. Is that what you said?
Yeah. And I know sometimes people razz on the Minnesota folks that we're passive aggressive, or that we're nice, and it's two-faced, but genuinely, I think that in the community I live in, and how I try to practice where I'm from, I think that there is a nicety about it.
Absolutely. Joe?
Oh man, so many things that I would love to dive down the rabbit hole. I would love to piggyback on that, but maybe before we do that, maybe take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, Jeff.
Absolutely. Let's hear from Baco Diagnostics. We all know that early detection is the most important determination in improving patient outcomes. Bacco Diagnostics remains committed to supporting you in your role as the first line of defense in diagnosing lower extremity pathologies. Bacco Diagnostics, helping podiatric physicians keep America on its feet.
All right. Well, and we're back. Lindsey, this is this idea of networking. I would love to kind of dive into this a little bit deeper. You had just said something that I think is so impactful, and this idea of little connections actually go a really long way. I love that you just identified you had a resident that you met at a course and they've reached out to you. Now they've come shadow you. I just came back off the Baltimore course, meeting all these amazing learners, and they're trying to get connected. It's incredible how these little bits, but at the end of the day, it is them having to also reach out. We can say all day long, please reach out if you need me. And if they don't ever take that initiative to do it, then it doesn't fill that loop. So as you have gone through your career, what were some of the times that maybe you were willing to make that step? Or was there ever moments where you felt really hesitant, but you had the courage to do it anyway?
I can think of a few, and they've come back full circle, which I love. One that comes to mind is I was always really interested in fellowship training. And I really admired Melissa Galley. Dr. Melissa Galley, I remember going up to her at the fellowship breakfast at ACFAS when I was, who knows what year training, but I was nervous. And I think at the time, just approaching her and connecting with her, like the Core Institute, and that's not ultimately where I trained, but still making that connection, felt a little frightening at the time. I was like pleasantly intimidated. But now I look at that we have each other's cell phone numbers, and I could kind of text her about anything. And we've met more through AO and done some other lecturing together. I think like what a beautiful circle that made. And we weren't in medical school or doing training at the same time, like she was an instructor, but yet we've come on the other side of that as attendings and connected. So I thought that was a really cool networking example. Other things I would say too is that even where I currently work, people that like Craig Clifford's co-resident currently works with me, if you can follow that. So we both trained at the same residency program a few years apart and both work in central Minnesota. And that connection kind of helped draw me into central Minnesota. I'm from Minnesota, so I wanted to come back. But just that little piece of saying, hey, someone else that Hutch trained and that knows my residency director, I was able to make contact with my current employer where I was able to connect with them during my training. And so it was through Steve Mariosh, who's friends with Doc Dockery and Byron Hutchinson, that knew that they would be looking for another podiatrist eventually, and got me connected at a conference pretty early on in my training to say that was not a guarantee. I didn't know that job was going to open up at the right time at the right place. But if I hadn't taken the opportunity to kind of connect with someone else and hear about their practice and indicate an interest, and then years go by and kind of continue to stay in touch with them via email or whatever means that that person offers you, I would just encourage students or anyone past student training, like any phase of your career, never hurts to ask or reach out, and doing so in the appropriate means that maybe they gave you an email, a cell phone number. Nowadays, so many people are on social media. That can be a great way to make an introduction and say, hey, I'm just looking for advice on this. Would you give me any feedback? I'm interested in this area of practice. Would you talk with me? There are so many people that want to help you out. Yeah. And so I would just really welcome the networking. I personally would, but I think so many people would.
One of the more, I'm sorry, Joe, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to share this story with you, Lindsey, because Joe and I are doing the podcast, so students from other schools hear about it. I just thought it was interesting. A student recently reached out from another school asking my opinions about their clerkship choices.
Wow.
Just with that, it makes it a smaller world than it used to be.
You might have felt tickled about that.
I was tickled about it. I gave them some good advice too, I think. But I think it was neat that they felt comfortable reaching out.
Absolutely. I think sometimes it's so complimentary to us, and not that I want to feel my ego puffed out anymore. But I think there's a point that mankind, we'd like to help our fellow out. Another networking thing for me was right as Dr. Dugella was creating his own fellowship, and I didn't know that, that's when I reached out to him and said, hey, would you ever let me rotate with you for a month's time and be connected and see what you do? And that's how we came up with this fellow swap to say, Brian hung and I basically spent a month's time with each other's fellowship directors and did mini fellowships and saw really different faces of foot and ankle care. And that's been a wonderful perspective it gave me from training, but it's also broadened just who I know and who I'm connected with, and different resources, different perspectives. And if I hadn't asked, it never would have happened. And they could have said no, but Dr. Jill said, yeah. And I'm like so grateful for that.
I don't think I've ever met anybody that said no when someone's reached out for their help.
Right.
I don't know anybody
Yeah.
that would say no.
He could have said, hey, maybe for this amount of time. And I said, like, great, I'll take anything, and if you're eager enough, and you do a good job. I have a resident that, wants to come back, and it's just kind of an open invite. You did a good job with me. You're cool. You talked to my patients nicely. Come on back. And, I would just continue to invite that.
I think this is so great because something as simple as just asking a question, like, what's the worst that would possibly happen? You get ignored. Okay. Right.
Yep.
They say, I'm sorry, I'm busy, or no, I can't do that right now. Again, okay. Best case scenario, you make a connection with someone. And to your point, Lindsey, it may not parlay into a job or a fellowship or, some other opportunity immediately. But then this is how these little connections, something comes to mind, like, oh, you know what?
Totally.
I know someone that would be perfect for that. Let me reach out to them.
Yep.
But if you've never
the
made
timing
that
works,
connection.
right? Because all of us are in kind of
Yeah.
these different time scale too, especially in training. And I still would say this message is for people out in practice, but timing works out. I know like someone that may be opening up a clinic and they might want an associate in a couple years. Well, guess what? You know what? There's people that you could already have in mind. And I would just encourage people too, if someone doesn't respond right away, how guilty are all of us or like letting a message
Yes.
slip through? Probably me too. So sorry in advance to someone that may feel that way. But I would just say like, it doesn't hurt to circle back either.
Yeah.
Because then you're
Absolutely.
at the top of mind. You're at the top of the list to say like, oh, Joe would be great too for this X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
So I think that's great too. I mean, there's a little bit of persistence, or like we've used the word grit to say like, that could be a time to dig in a little bit too.
Joe, I'm thinking about when we interviewed Mitzi Williams and she talked about just reaching out to Dr. Poncetti. And he
Sure. I've heard her interview on that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those are such great stories. Just a little moment I had. I was trying to do an NIH grant, and I was asking a friend, who would you reach out to who's an expert? He said, well, how about reaching out to Paul Brand? And I said, no way, I could never reach out to Paul Brand. And he gave me his phone number. And when I called Paul, he answered on the phone and we worked together. So you never know.
Yep. Yeah. I would agree.
But if you never ask, you definitely won't.
Right.
Like that,
right.
That's
Exactly.
that. So
the
like the worst
no.
case scenario could still be better than just not doing it at all. Like that little moment of pain, like let's say the worst case scenario, somebody like yelled at you and said, no, that's ridiculous. It's over. Like it's done. Right. And that just doesn't happen. It's that's the scenario. And so having that little bit of courage to make that step, to send that DM, or, again, you can keep this as, start as low as you feel comfortable and build the courage to make it bigger. Cause I think your point, Lindsey, is really appropriate. We are also all very busy. So it, just because you don't get an instantaneous, reply doesn't mean it's a no. It just means a, follow up. Hey, I just wanted to reach back out. And if you keep kind of getting ghosted, then that maybe is your answer, but you find someone else to connect with. And I'd love to get, because I know you're also part of the ACFAS Chris Mahaffey Leadership Program. Yeah. I'd love to then get your take on how do you see this translating then into stuff like leadership? How do we think about leadership in this role of demonstrating the ability to lead and support each other? What are your thoughts?
Oh, great question. I'm really enjoying the program. I would encourage anyone to investigate it and see if it's right for them. A lot of the coursework that we do are principles of really working with others. And some can be kind of basic at times, but point out things that are basic that you have a light bulb moment about. And I feel that it's great to just go through the whole process with it. So positive psychology, things in TED Talks, but things about how to lead a meeting, giving feedback, correcting your peers, conflict. I mean, the topics that we've gone through, your leadership style, so many things, your communication, huge. I think that's been really pivotal within the college specifically, because in a way I feel that it's kind of like having some training wheels on with some of the mentors paired with you to really help propel you to see other places within the profession that you could be utilized. Not that I'm not already a leader in my own way or in my own community, but I'd say there's an intentionality with it that I think sets it apart from maybe other opportunities for leadership. And to be able not only to distinguish that about yourself and your peers doing it, I think it just shows the initiative that you want to take to keep moving with this, and that maybe it's designating to people in the profession or beyond or the college to say, like, I really care about the profession. I care about the people in it. I care about the patients, to say, maybe please consider calling upon me for other ways that I can serve. Because at the end of the day, if you're there to get your name out there, that will probably also happen to some degree. But I think there has to be some altruism with it to say it is, the coursework is demanding, the project is demanding. You have to have the right means for wanting to be involved in that way and to say yes to things that are beyond serving yourself personally. I don't, know the ways that could come up back and really serve me, other than I feel that I become a better leader and that I continue to put myself out there to say, how can I assist and make an impact?
Jeff, your thoughts?
Well, the other thing I was thinking is what you're learning through a leadership group like that isn't going to apply or be applicable right away. It might be 10 years before you see the fruits of your time and energy and efforts. You never know, but it could make the difference in many ways in your career.
Well, and kind of like doing studio art. Did I know that I was going to for sure do small dainty surgery on digits, also larger surgeries that were more robust with things, but it all has added up to be great for experience. So I do encourage people to put themselves out there in the right way if that seems appropriate, to challenge themselves, whether it's an art class that you do through your community at this point, or it is taking on a course that I do in the evenings to say, hey, I'm taking my personal time to hopefully better myself for the improvement of other things in the future that I can't predict at this time.
I have a question for you, Lindsey. When I listened to the Dean's Chat that you and Joe were the hosting with Hutch,
Sure, yeah.
He was obviously one of your mentors. Do you mind talking about other mentors you've had in your career?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's great to surround yourself with people that you admire and aspire to be more like. And I think through that, you'll find mentors. I think that it's good not to be discriminatory, because you could meet someone younger than you. You could meet someone older than you. You could meet someone the same age as you. Obviously, people that look and act similar to you. But at the end of the day, if there's something that you admire about them or have been put in front of you, I think a mentorship role can be possible. So, I mean, in podiatry, we've obviously talked about Hutch and how influential that was in my career. But I've also seen great doctors or clinicians that weren't podiatrists that I still reach out to and say, hey, like, how is this working in your practice just as it relates to medicine? For me, faith is really instrumental in my life. And I have people that I connect to on a faith level that may not be specific to my career, but I still seek wisdom in other lights to say, like, hey, that could be someone from church that is a mentor. And then I also think I sought a lot of mentorship when I was in medical school from someone like the class year above me. And that might be more, applicable to our audience, depending on who's listening, to say, like, who is a year or two above you that maybe is doing well in school, has a similar demeanor to you, cares about the same things in life, and you want to know what externships they're picking. That was huge for me. I followed Kelsey Milanig and Stephanie Oxman out to Seattle because they were both at DMU. And I thought, wow, you guys have it figured out. I really like who you are, what you're achieving, and what you're set out to do, and how I kind of started looking at Franciscan, right? So I think that mentorship can can be in so many forms and so many platforms. So if that kind of touches on it a little bit, I haven't outlined all of my special people, but we kind of have throughout the podcast. And I'd say beyond that and social other circumstances, those are people I still really call on.
Fabulous.
It's so funny too, Lindsey, having the very beginning of this interview, and you had talked about seeing a female surgeon and how that one little bit that inspired you, and then talking Dr. Oxman, Dr. Malonging, these are other strong female leaders that have had some influence on you. Can you talk a little bit about that perspective? Certainly, again, some of the things I know you and I have already had private conversations on, but mentors, it's important to see yourself in roles. And sometimes that can be challenging when the leaders that you're seeing don't always look the same as you or act the same as you. What are your thoughts on what it's like to be a woman in medicine?
Wow. Yes. I think with every topic today, we're all like, oh yes, where should we dive in? And let's hit the surface, and that's cool. I think a few things with that. I don't want to put gender in place of us all in medicine, but there can be differences, I think, of our experiences, perceptions towards us, natural biases that I could also be at fault for at times. And I want to own that. But also I really highlight for people the scarcity principle to say, I think there's enough for everyone. And I think sometimes for women to women in medicine, it's really important to look at ways that we could spur on the next generation or even someone right alongside of us to say they don't have to be considered competition. So for also us joint women in medicine, let's raise each other up, because I think that can be a huge way to propel so many wonderful things about in a specific career, in patients, advocacy, policy, there's so many things if we're working together and look at it that way. That's one of the first and foremost things I would say about our conversation translating from mentorship to women in medicine is wow, I wouldn't be where I am without awesome women in medicine, awesome men in medicine too. But just because we're on the topic of women, there is something to be said about shared experiences that are gender focused. And I felt where I trained gave me the opportunity to be seen for who I was and what I brought to the table, and that there weren't obvious biases of how I looked, how I may act, how my career may develop based on all the interests that you all kind of already know I have, to say I just want to be taken seriously and I want to be the best I can be. And I think that's one facet of women in medicine that's really huge, and all of us can contribute to, is just raising other people up. I think understanding some gender differences can also be helpful to say, how does, empathic fatigue, there's a lot of literature about that we spend more time charting and putting things in the chart and maybe express more about patients. Just different things, knowing those differences between us is huge to also help recognize ways that our practice can be optimized and encouraged. And stylistically, I think that there's patients that want to be treated by a female, whether that is a more nurturing role, the way that we may communicate different, or comfort level to be with someone in your same gender. I think those are all really huge things to say. I love studying similarities, but also differences, because I think that's true to who we are. And I think that, optimizing your strengths while recognizing your weaknesses is one of the best ways that I can keep improving. Is it all related to gender? No, but there is a part of Lindsey that is a female physician in medicine. And I have experienced biases, as I'm sure men and women both have. And my goal is to just always look at the intention of the person and see the best in them.
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to mirror something that even from the very beginning that you had touched on, and this idea that each of us brings something unique that only we can bring. And this is why everyone's voice does matter, and finding people that you get comfortable sharing or connecting with, because you're right, we don't all experience things the same way, and nor should we, but having that support and being able to lift each other up is such an important part of serving each other in the community so that we can show up at the best version of ourselves for our patients. And again, it sounds very kumbaya, but at the core of what we do, that is what makes each of us special. And so being able to feel comfortable in who you are and what you bring to the table, and it's okay to take some time to figure out what those things are, but not to feel like you have to hide them. And so I appreciate so much that very thoughtful answer on a multifaceted, deeply layered question. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And, I would just encourage any male or female listening that comparison is the thief of joy. And so if you're looking to someone else and thinking that they have what you want and you can't have it, I would just say, try to eliminate that. There's so much and more than enough for everyone to go around. And I realize training positions could be limited and there are circumstances that are challenging around that, but keep reaching for what it is that you're looking for. And then sometimes you'll recognize that maybe what someone else had wasn't really what you wanted, but it looked good. Or like for me, I was obviously so enthralled with things that Dr. Milanig and Oxman were reaching for and have ended up having cultivated these really unique and special practices. And I can honor that I love their skill set and their passions, and mine are slightly different. But we still continue to push each other to be the best. And I feel that I was thankfully in a healthy place to say like, wow, I'm really happy for you because that's awesome. I could never do that. But you're so skilled and I want you to have every possible success in that. And we all practice in different states and we all do slightly different things. We came from a similar, training experience, but what we've done with that is all been really different.
In many ways, that's one of the great things about podiatry, right? There's so many ways that you can capitalize on your strengths and your passions. It makes sense. And then Joe, I interviewed Stephanie Oxman. The podcast started a couple of years ago. She is incredible, Lindsey.
I know. That's
she has a great podcast.
She deserves a shout out. We have to tag her in this and say all the amazing people. I'm here to say like, wow, you've inspired me so much. You do great things. And to be honest, I probably should tell them that more, right? How powerful is that for all of us? And I think some of those feel goods, that's a big part of positive psychology, maybe even likability too, Jeff, as you've outlined.
There you go. True. Joe, you think we should do some rapid fires?
Oh, most definitely. We can't.
I got one more
not
question.
Do it.
Joe, I have one more question that's not rapid fire like.
Okay.
Lindsey, what was it like studying religion as a minor? And that had to have a huge impact on you also, and your motivation for that.
I think I'm still studying it. In some ways, the day that we live in today is certainly there's political and religious conflict that's certainly very intertwined. So I continue to be a student of it. I feel that I have core beliefs that I certainly practice, but it's helped me open my mind and understand other people and where they come from. Because otherwise, if we are closed-minded or choose to not understand, I think that we're missing out. And then maybe having misconceptions or treating people unfairly or unkindly. I think the world and our newspapers certainly speak to many facets of this, but I just think it really led to that liberal arts education. I continue to be happy that I made that choice to make that study a possibility and a focus.
I wish I would have. I wish I would have done it for credits instead of afterwards, just doing it on my own. So there you go.
There you go. I learned a lot more about world religions that I probably would have otherwise. And that can hear different beliefs for you personally too.
Yeah. Well, to your point about understanding different cultures or different people, it's hard to put yourself in other people's shoes sometimes.
Right. And that's why I say, gosh, I'm still a student. I would love to travel to more diverse countries and take in other personal experiences and things. And honestly, central Minnesota still has a fair amount of, diversity and things that I'm continually confronted by. But I think it just always helps to be a lifelong learner. Maybe that's the takeaway.
There you go. All right, Joe, you want to go first on rapid fire?
I do. And so since we are a little limited on time, we actually, Jeff, this has actually become kind of funny. We go to dinner during some of these AO things, and it's become kind of the joke. We do the Dean's Chat game which is like we come up with some random rapid fire question, everyone goes around, and we learn so much about it's just now it's just like flat out fun. So Lindsey, this one came up recently, but if you could take anyone to dinner from any time in history, could be a personal person, like from your own family history, or could be a famous person, who would you ask and why?
It may be on front of mind as there was, an announcement today about her new docuseries, but I would have to ask Taylor Swift. And everyone may kind of scoff, but you can't be just more than amazed with that woman because she does it all. And I think she sounds like an incredible person in her personal life too. And so I would love to take her to dinner.
Oh, I think she'd be fascinating to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
So Lindsey, if you weren't a podiatrist, what would you have done otherwise for a career?
Oh, that's so interesting. I have told people in the past I would love to be a life coach.
Oh,
I don't know if I have enough life under my belt, but I feel like as time goes on and I deal with certain circumstances, I'm gaining more and more little pearls. And maybe it's just through sharing them through podcasts or personal conversations, but life continues to motivate me and at times challenge me. And I love sharing in that with others. I learn a lot from other people with doing that, but I also would say there's times that I feel like I've got some coaching in me.
It's interesting you say that because MD coaches actually helps. They've got a whole kind of array of different specialists that help coach fellow doctors, and they're always looking for good coaches, and they put you through a formal coach training. And
I would be beyond interested, I think.
like
I said, I'm feeling like I don't have enough life to probably really market that, but at some point, maybe that would be a little bit of a transition from full-time clinical surgical practice.
There you go.
All right, so we'll make it a little lighter. Tell us about the strangest food you've ever eaten, and strange is relative. So for one person, something that's pretty normal and natural in their life, for other people, is a little strange. So strange is nice because it's not judgmental. It's just tell us about a food that you've eaten that was strange for you.
Cultural food of Peru is guinea pig.
Oh, yeah.
And I just
guinea pig came up this week. Yep.
I had to try it. I hiked around Machu Picchu and I saw the guinea pig farms, which, yes, for those of you that are animal lovers, I know I cringe a little inside too. But I did have guinea pig.
All right.
And that was strange in the way it was prepared and just kind of out there in front of you.
Was it good? Was it kind of gamey or was it good?
Tolerable, kind of like a little chicken.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did they fry it?
Yeah, they did. I mean, I don't know if I would say it was a deep fried kind of situation, but a little bit.
So being from Minnesota, my grandparents were in New Ulm. That's not that far from you.
Right.
And whenever we'd go there, we'd have lefse. My grandma would make lefse, which is very Minnesota.
Very Minnesota, and very not far from Gustavus, which is also a Swedish school. So they served that there.
Yes.
Along with pickled fish. What is that? You'll have to educate me.
No, it's almost like a crepe almost.
The lefse is the yummy kind of crepe. The lutefisk is the pickled.
There we go.
Yeah.
The fish
herring or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I really couldn't get down with that as much, but it's there.
All right. So Lindsey, you're gonna go. It's January. You're through the holidays. You got a week off. Where are you gonna go on vacation?
January.
I say January because I say January.
Yeah.
I got 2 trips on my docket. I'm looking at eventually go to Greece. That's on my bucket list. I'd love to go to Greece. I'm not sure if January is the best time. Maybe push that off. Otherwise, I've never been to Jamaica.
Oh,
okay.
Look, something tropical. I think you have to get out of Minnesota at some point during the winter.
One of my best friends is from Jamaica, and I find myself saying "yaman" sometimes.
I don't know how I could not come back and do all that in my practice, and people would be so annoyed.
Oh my God. Well, Lindsey, thank you so much for carving out time to join Joe and I on Dean's Chat. It's just been such a fun hour, and it seems like it was 15 minutes.
Like a blink.
So pleasant chatting with you. Thank you for having me. I'm truly honored. It's been delightful.
Well, thanks again for joining us. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating. And if you're watching on YouTube, by all means, become a subscriber. Joe and I will continue to bring leaders in podiatric medicine and surgery. And I don't have I do have a cup.
I do.
Lindsey, we're sending you a Dean's Chat mug.
You
Start your day the Dean's Chat way. So
I intend
or
to.
end your day the dean's
Or
chair
end
way.
your
Either way.
That's right.
All right, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.